Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. It's an engaging and enlightening talk show on life, relationships, and the business of life. Grab a cup of juice and just chill. Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. Live life. Live fully.
You are now tuned in to this week's episode of our podcast. Today we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in our field. By sharing our collective expertise, we will show you how to harness, control, and use your own skill set to achieve ultimate success and live the life you want. And now, please welcome your host.
It's your host on Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. This is Omobola Stephen. Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen is a self-development and personal improvement podcast show with the occasion of experts and professionals who come to share disruptive mindshift podcast content on any topics on the personal development and self-improvement. It's a pleasure to have Coonoor Behal on Life Well Lived today. Coonoor Behal is the founder CEO of Mindhatch and author of I Quit, the life-affirming joy of giving up. Coonoor here is to talk about how the idea of quitting can get you closer to what you want in life. Sounds more like it. Welcome with me on the show today, Coonoor Behal.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It's such a privilege to be here.
Such a pleasure to have you on the show, Coonoor. Now, I'm looking forward to your professional expertise, along with your personal experience on the topic of discussion. Now, we want to talk about quitting, right? Now, quitting something, either a habit, a business, a job, a relationship, or anything takes a lot of boldness. And I know that you agree with me on that. So, but really, why do people quit?
So you said why they quit, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So why do people quit? I think there are a lot of different, very specific to the individual reasons why people quit. But in researching and writing my book, I think there are a couple of general universal themes. I think people quit mainly when they realize that a decision that they made earlier or a situation they're currently in no longer matches their values. Or maybe it never matched their values. So I think that disconnect between action and values and belief systems is quite often the reason people end up quitting something when they've come to their wits' end.
Right, Coonoor. There's so many quotes on never giving up. A lot of them, right? Once you go online, you can easily bump into so many quotes on never give up. Now, Winston Churchill once said in one of his quotes, the never give up on something you can't go a day without thinking about. So I'm wondering, could this be something? Could it be a person, a particular job, having a dream home or whatever? Now, I'd like you to put this in a more clearer perspective.
Yeah, so that quote, wow, I actually have not heard that quote before. It's really interesting. And I think my initial reaction is just, no, that is incorrect. Because I think as you alluded to, it stands to reason that people think about things every day that still are not good for them. How can we not think about our jobs every day? How can we not think about the people in our lives every day? But merely because they cross our minds doesn't mean that they are meaningful to us, that they are worth sacrifice, that they are worth trading off our values and what we believe. So I feel like that quote, like many quotes, honestly, is a little overly simplistic and probably speaks a little bit more to obsession rather than what is truly good and healthy and meaningful for our lives. That's my initial reaction to that quote. Yeah.
Right. So people tell me, or any other person, give up on those things, give up on those stars, right? I know that you've been in that kind of situation, right? So if I just decided I just want to try one more time, who knows, success could be closer than I think. What is your thought on this?
Oh yes, absolutely. My personal kind of ethos when it comes to quitting, as well as what is spoken of in the book, is not necessarily about like quitting everything in your life with reckless abandon and without thought, and that's a big part of what I hope the book and my own experiences offer is the ability to reframe and redefine quitting and to redefine quitters and who quitters are. Quitters are actually not failures, right? The people I interview in my book are very hardworking. They did exactly what you just said. They kept trying, they kept testing to see if something could work for them, would be successful. They did not, and most people do not give up at the first sign of struggle, and yet, because they did that one last time, or for some of them, 10 last times that they wish that they hadn't, they learned that it was not right for them, and so they made the decision to quit, as difficult as it was for them. So I think what you're asking is a really interesting question. I think embedded in it is this assumption that to quit is to fail, to quit is to give up, to be a quitter is to be a failure. And all three of those things, I think, are just false.
All right. So let's talk here. So what are those things that a person can give up on and those things that they have to hold on to?
Definitely. So in terms of the things that are available to someone to quit, I would say anything in the human experience. I think here in America, especially right now, there is a movement happening that people are calling the Great Resignation. Many, many, many people are quitting their jobs, especially those in lower paying service sector jobs. And it is very much like an economic trend that is happening right now in the United States, at the very least. And so certainly jobs, careers, those are things that you can make choices around to quit. But there's a lot of other things in life that you can quit. And in fact, like my book, I strove to address the whole breadth of a life and human experience where you have these opportunities to make choices. So I would say someone can also make a bold choice to quit an aspiration that they had. They can quit people and relationships. They can quit identities that they previously held. You can quit places even. God knows I've moved around a lot, you can quit habits, of course. And so I think there's a very large universe of things in our lives that sometimes we don't know that they are there existing because of choices we made. And therefore, we don't know that we can undo those choices. And so if we're not paying attention, if we're not reflecting, if we're not self-interrogating ourselves and our choices and seeing if our choices are matching our values, it can be very easy to just kind of, bob along in life and live your life with inertia. On the question of what things people maybe should hold on to, again, I think that is such a individual, personal choice. And it's one reason why in the book, I don't proclaim to tell people when or why they should quit. That's very much an individual, values-driven decision. But I would hope that people hold on to their sense of self. They hold on to their sense of self-worth. And that because if they do that, then they're better positioned to quickly understand when something is violating their values. So I would really just hope that people hold on to themselves and not lose themselves in the face of decisions that are no longer serving them.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you, Coonoor Behal, for your submission. Now, I want us to focus on quitting a job, for instance, right? Since we're talking about quitting. So, LD quitting. So, I've heard people say that it's often a wise decision to hold on a bit before quitting a job. And I'm sure you've heard that also. Perhaps in this instance, to ensure that they've already gotten a new job, before they quit their present jobs, right? Sometimes this often pays off and sometimes it doesn't, because I've been in this kind of situation before. But in my own case, I had to quit a job because I wanted to go for higher learning. I wanted to go to the university. So I had made up on my mind that I was going to quit this job. Nothing was going to hold me back. So I did quit the job and I did got into a university. So that was a dream come true. So it pays off in some instances, and in some other instances, it doesn't pay off. Now, so what advice will you give such a person in this scenario?
Yeah, I too, especially here in the United States, in all of my careers I've had previously, that I've also inherited that preference that other people have, which is, don't quit your job and then start looking for a job. You want to go from job to job to job and be looking for your next job while you're still in your current job. And I think the conventional wisdom, at least here in America, is that you look more competitive for the next job if you already have a job. Whereas if you're unemployed, you don't appear as desirable, or maybe you cannot be in a position to negotiate well. And I have to tell you, Omobola, my experiences in transitioning jobs and careers have mostly included that time of unemployment transition. And I'll tell you one reason, why. My first career, I quit without any plan. And it was because the place I was working at was had a lot of sexual harassment occurring. Now, that was something that was very much a violation of my values, very much a mind, body, spirit, soul, just violation. I could not stand to be there. I could not stand to ignore what was going on. And so to me, in that moment, it was worth the trade-off. It was worth to quit and be unemployed and figure out my next move while not being in that highly toxic, highly dysfunctional environment. So that's kind of like one example that I think a lot of people might encounter, where you cannot be a healthy person by staying. And it, in fact, could have potentially delayed your ability to leave because you're managing so many things in your current job. And we all know that looking for a new job is itself a full-time job often. So sometimes it can be the better choice for your health and for your development to make that clean separation. Now, other times, that may not be the case. Maybe you aren't needing to flee a job because it violates your values. Maybe it's coming purely out of desire or curiosity, and so then it may be a different choice that you are more comfortable kind of, working a job while also applying for other jobs and potentially it taking a bit longer for that transition. But one thing I want to bring up when it comes to jobs in particular, and I do raise this in the book as well, because I feel it's the responsible thing to do, is that oftentimes the choice to quit a job, oftentimes the choice to quit even a person in your life, there's a lot of privilege, that can be bound up in those decisions. Not everyone has the privilege to quit a job and be unemployed for 3 months while they look for the next job. Not everyone has the privilege to leave a partner if they're financially dependent on them, or if they have children to think of. And so I think, particularly in the job case, that's why it can be such an individual choice about marrying what your values are to what your reality is. And it's okay. Like, not everyone can make those decisions, but it's whatever is the bold, right choice for you, given your circumstances, is what I would hope for someone.
Right. Thank you once again, Coonoor Behal, for your submission once again. Now, I want us to talk about your book, I Quit. Interesting. Such an interesting book. I love the way you share real stories and poignant insights, right, in your book. So I'd like you to share with my audience what really inspired you.
Yeah. So what inspired me, before it ever was a book, it was just an idea in my head and part of my own personal identity, which was over the years. I know I referenced one job quitting story of mine already, but over the years, especially